for people who are listening who aren't as fashionable and need some fashion advice from a professional like you?
This is going to take a bit of a different turn because, like, I have been surrounded by fashion for a long time, but I'm also a minimalist. And because of my activism, I have learned so much more about what the fashion industry and the fast fashion industry entails. Really, fashion ceases to be beautiful when the people behind it are suffering, when the environment is suffering because of it. So I think, like, at the same time, we want to wear our values and not be taken along into the tidal wave of exploitation that the fashion industry is now built upon. I've been, getting involved with Fashion Revolution, the largest global activism fashion movement in the world that campaigns for a clean and fair fashion industry. And it's really hard to see people, and I was like them as well, being losing their own identities because trends are moving faster than ever. And we seem to be only following them because of all this external peer pressure and influence of marketing directed toward us that is very hard to fight off. So the moment you buy it, it already starts to go out of fashion. And as the minimalists like to say, trendy just means it's going out of style too. And it doesn't really define who you are as an individual. It doesn't really define your expression of creativity. I think when we all start to dress alike, when we start to be copying each other just because it is the current trend of the season, we then cease to question, actually, do I actually like this? Or is it because I saw someone else wear it? Or is it because it was presented to me on a plate, in a lookbook, in a certain combination, and on a really skinny girl, so that it looks really appealing and they want me to idolize it and try to be like that? Am I buying and wearing this because of that, or do I actually enjoy it? Does this serve my life? Does this allow me to kind of wear my heart on my shoulder, on my sleeve, and like, hey, this is who I am. This is how I choose to dress because this is the way it makes me feel good. This allows me to go and do all the things I want because it's comfortable, because it makes me feel and look good at the same time, rather than am I doing it because I saw someone else do it? So I think all of us have to really redefine what creative expression means to each of us through fashion, rather than just trying to follow trends. And that might be really challenging. And I really empathize, especially with people who are younger, because their eyeballs are assaulted by marketing through social media and everywhere else, like thousands of times per day, on what they should look like this month. And, my time in Australia and going through the cycle of consumerism myself has really taught me that, because now when I look back at pictures, I'm like, wow, that looked really shit on me. Why did I wear it? Everyone has embarrassing photos from the 2000s and the 90s because, like, how did I think that looked good? It was because every celebrity was dressing like that. And that was our early versions of influencers, right? All your friends were dressing like that and all the shops were filled with stuff like that. Even though actually my body type doesn't carry this really well. Or like, this wasn't even my color. This wasn't even my thing. And I looked silly in it. And everyone was like bury their old like fashion photos. And I think this is just like a repeated process. Like, if you and I look at each other now and then we go 10 years later, we'll be like, oh shit, why did I follow this trend? I looked silly in 2022. So I think if we put boundaries on ourselves in terms of fashion and really explore what our real fashion identity is, what are the best things that fit on us? What are the ways that we enjoy it? How can we creatively create wardrobes that are highly curated with often a much smaller number of items in it to be the best version of myself that isn't influenced by external measures? So yeah, that's really where the door opens. If you close one door, which is the door of consumerism and marketing, you open a door to self-expression and creativity.
Yeah, I've been a minimalist for about 7 or 8 years. And honestly, the only downside is I have to do my laundry faster because I have less clothes to go through the cycle of. But it's a very empowering lifestyle because you're making decisions. But as you said, very honestly, that there is some trade-off with authentic creative expressions. If some of your expressions also have some associations with larger brands or larger platforms, right? So that's a trade-off that people have to do based on discerning what values they really care about. So I really appreciate that. And then thank you for the TED Talk. That was very inspiring. And I'm motivated to go through my wardrobe and be more intentional again. I want to stay on this train in terms of assaulting eyeballs, right? You also sounded like a psychologist for a minute because you're right. The level of lopsided competition from the large corp, having the best PhDs, the best psychologists, the best branding experts, the best marketers, no individual consumer, doesn't matter how aware you are, how highly trained you are, you can't compete with that level of resources. It's not possible. So I want to talk about that large corps. On your social media stories, especially on Instagram, you promote a lot about the awareness about small business, fashion businesses I call it fashion imperialism, right? Large companies like Urban Outfitters or Anthropologists, on, they steal a design from a smaller indigenous or minority groups, and then they take their design as their own without giving any credits, without any compensations. And I've seen a lot of you doing that on your social media. Can you share some with us for some people who have never heard about this, who are utterly aware that large fashion brands they love is doing some horrible things on a daily basis to small business owners, to really authentic fashion designers? Can you share some of the things that comes to your mind?
I won't be able to remember all of the key ones on the top of my mind, but that's kind of like what fast fashion is built upon, because of the speed and the volume that it churns out. It means that a lot of shortcuts happen along the way. Thousands of new designs released every single day. For example, like now it's ultra fast fashion with Shein. They release thousands every day, not just pieces, but thousands of designs. And then you multiply that by 50, by 100 of how many pieces. You can just imagine the scale of it. Because of that, it's about all the shortcuts that they're taking is, workers that are not being paid well. They are being paid poverty wages, or maybe not even being paid at all, or living and working in insane conditions that are not really safe, working hours without breaks, working really long hours without breaks, never seeing their family. And it's all just to be able to churn this continuous machine of fast fashion. Along the way, because thousands of designs every day, how fast can you really design? It's actually easier to just steal independent designers' designs. So that's just what happens. There are so many instances on social media where small businesses go on and say, this is my design and this is it in Shein. This is my design and this is it copied in this other fast fashion brand. And because the power imbalance is so huge where, that corporation can do whatever they want, and this small corporation over here, this small independent designer, doesn't have the same amount of resources to be able to take legal action on them, all of it just gets swept under the carpet. So it's also up to the individual to realize that this is going on and we shouldn't stand for it. Every time you buy something from a fast fashion brand, it's very likely that they stole that design from an independent designer. How fast fashion evolved in the first place, its early evolutions were like Zara. That was like one of the early brands of fast fashion. And the whole business model was built upon wearing the runway. So all the big brands, all the major designers will showcase their designs. And then the next week you'll see it in Zara, because they already copied what was on the runway. So you don't even have to wait for ready to wear. It will be ready to wear for you in Zara, copied. And now it's just like a mutated monster of that, just faster and more prevalent. So how can a small independent designer, which has poured their blood, sweat, and tears and heart into each design, bringing it from paper into, curating it carefully, making sure, especially if they're an ethical brand, making sure that it was made ethically and does justice to the people who made it all along the way, to bring this labor of love to the consumer, to the fashion lover being trampled by a huge giant fast fashion brand. That will just stifle creativity altogether, because that just puts people out of business. That makes, designers just quit, because what is the point of me doing this if someone else is just going to take it and none of it is going to go back to me. I might as well just not. So how it's not really a system that we should be supporting, and we should really, take a hard look at how we consume, because while it's cheap for a reason. It's cheap because it took away from so many other people.
Man, wow. I think I underestimated the prevalence of this fashion imperialism that's happening. And my heart died a little bit because Zara is my favorite brand from Spain. Like, I love Zara. I was born in Paris, and they're very cheap, as you said, for the quality of their fashion, like Express or Uniqlo from a different country. So now it makes sense why their price is cheaper compared to their competitors because of their practices. So that breaks my heart a little bit, but sounds like I have some examination to do, look at my fashion choices and some of the brands I support as well, because I believe everything you do, and I really believe in the global green movement, right? Trying to reduce waste and do it in a very ethical way.